Hi guys, welcome to Lexing Consulting's YouTube channel. Today we're talking about the AWS security stack. As you all know, AWS is pretty popular nowadays, and it's slightly different from how things were or how things still are in our data centers are configured and set up, what services you have. The original kind of stack for most companies was where you have your internet, and then behind the internet you have your BGP, your ISP, then you have a firewall, two firewalls, dual connection, and then you have VP channels and switches. That's still the model in the background, but as a security engineer, because AWS is a shared responsibility, those pieces are taken care of by someone else. So now as a security engineer, you get to focus on these other pieces. So same process, but just a different level. So you're dealing with identity access and management is the first one. And then after that, you're dealing with logging and monitoring. And then after that, you're dealing with infrastructure security, data protection, and then incident response. The same process, the same cores that make security, but just different services. So here I've got a bit of a diagram that kind of explains that. So in my identity access and management, I'm using the IAM service, the single sign-on, making sure that I'm vetting who's logging in, making sure that the access keys are rotating, making sure that if I'm using single sign-on, I'm authenticating to another company like Microsoft's Azure, Microsoft AD, and things. Those are set up so that core layer is protected. And logging and monitoring, I'm making sure that any activities on my servers and my environment is being tracked via CloudTrail. Any detection in the event something is nefarious looking, guard duties and informing me of that. Same thing with CloudWatch. Operating at the server level, the VPC level, then infrastructure security on top of my applications within AWS. I want to make sure that I have my CloudFront in place to deter DDoS attacks. I have my WAF in place to deter. WAF is just a web application firewall, which is just making sure that everything that's coming through in my network is SQL injections, cross-site scripting, all those hitting my application. I protect from that. You can also add an AWS firewall in that conversation where you're saying, all right, so before any traffic exits my environment, I want it to go through the firewall. Before it comes into my environment, I want it to go through an AWS firewall. In this instance, this would be like the equivalent of your FortiGate or your Palo Alto or your Checkpoint. You put that in place. AWS firewall is sufficient, but not on the same level as Palo Alto or FortiGate or any of these next generation firewall. And then when it comes to data protection, I want to leverage KMS, key management systems, which is just saying, hey, if I have a S3 bucket or I've got any CloudTrail logs or any kind of VPC logs, I want those encrypted. So KMS is doing that, and then versioning within different storage services such as S3, saying, hey, if I have a file that I'm constantly changing, constantly adding to or editing to, I want you to keep a version of that so I can go back and say, hey, let me go back as far as last year 2021 and see what changes, what my file was like before. And then secret management, obviously, managing your secrets, managing your authentication, your passwords, your APIs are authenticating to different applications, but you want that to be managed somewhere. So secret management, incident response, obviously we got Lambda functions that say, hey, if something happens, trigger this. If something happens, auto scale. Say for instance, if my server is getting smaller or getting bigger, and to the point that I need to change my resource, then I have a Lambda function that says, hey, do ABCY, ABCD, and also with SNS notification, hey, something nefarious is happening here. Okay, let me go ahead and initiate this action, which will initiate this action, and so on and so forth. So having those in place are critical to your incident response. And these are just some of the examples. I know there's a lot of services that you could marry into your AWS security stack outside what I've presented. So in my example here, obviously you have a VPC, virtual private computing, and within that I have app servers, and then I have web servers that are publicly facing internet access. They need actually publicly facing. So in front of that, obviously I put an application loader, load balancer, or an ELB, elastic load balancer, which is balancing obviously and servicing the requests from the internet. So abcd.com is facing the outside, and all that traffic has to traverse all through that Route 53 for your DNS protection. There's DNS injections that try to steal your DNS and force it to respond to other not so well-meaning people, to put it lightly. And then obviously within the VPC you have things like network access controllers, which is basically saying, hey, all right, you're my database and you're my app server VPC. Within that, I do not want you to have unlimited access. I just want you to access port 2020 and talk to my database behind this other CIDR or behind this VPC. And then security groups, you're saying, hey, I can allow anything to go outbound, but I cannot allow everything to come back inside. So it's almost like on the same level as your switch, your router, and a little bit of a firewall, so to speak. Then obviously the route table, which is saying, hey, if you're trying to get to resource B, go through this gateway, and so on and so forth. So this is just a kind of a simple diagram showing that, and you can delve into further understanding how this works. But this should give you a good start for your AWS security stack and what people are using out there. So enjoy watching this video, and if you have any questions, feel free to add your comment. Thank you.